Efendim, küresel bakış açısıyla sektörü değerlendireceğimiz özel bir sunumla devam ediyoruz. Küresel perspektif sunumunu yapmak üzere Kimum Zakayo Steven, Küresel Petrol Ekipmanı Dağıtıcıları ve Mühendislik Birliği adına sahneye geliyor. Buyurun efendim, sahne sizin.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope it's okay that I'm going to be speaking English this afternoon. Yes? Yes, so just one second. So as I start, first of all, I would like to thank Petroleum Istanbul for inviting us to come here. My name is Steven Zakayo Chimumwe. I'm from Africa. And from what I know is that for all the invites that have come here, I think we're the only Africans, me and two of my colleagues who are sitting right there. So I'm from a country called Uganda, right in East Africa. And I'm from the company called the Global Petroleum Equipment Distributors and Engineering Association, the PEDEA, which is stationed in East Africa. So thank you so much for the invite. And I'm going to give you a few insights about Africa and what's going on in the oil and gas industry, plus the fuel industry as well. So it's really a privilege to be here. So So this is the company that I do work. I'm representing this afternoon. It is called the Global Petroleum Equipment Distributors and Engineering Association, the PEDEA. Okay, so this is a fraternity that integrates all stakeholders in gas and oil industry, including the oil companies themselves, petroleum equipment distributors, the fuel service stations, engineering firms, construction firms, consultancy firms, and also petroleum authorities, which is a big thing in Africa. Okay, so the mission of this company is to provide our customers with the highest quality products and services in the oil and gas industry. And that's why you see we are here today, because we want to get those connections. We want to get those connections with the good suppliers, with the quality that is here, so that we can connect them to our customers as well. Our vision is to be a leading provider of innovative and reliable solutions for the oil and gas industry. Okay, and our core values, of course, as I mentioned earlier, quality is the first thing. Secondly is safety and customer satisfaction. And this is something which has been iterated or mentioned several times in the presentations we've had here. Quality, safety, and customer satisfaction. And this is what PEDEA is about. Now, moving forward, I'd like to mention that, ladies and gentlemen, there is a new dawn in Africa right now, okay? What is happening is that Africa is no longer what we thought it was. Africa is changing very, very quickly. And in that case, everything else that is coming there has to change with it, okay? We are seeing that today as we speak, Africa's GDP is about 1.6 trillion. Okay, which is roughly equal to Brazil's and Russia's, or just a little bit lower, but close to what they do have. Secondly, we're seeing that the consumers are spending much more in Africa as we speak. And then thirdly, we have new mobile phone subscribers since 2000, about 400 million. The reason why I bring up this issue is because it's a very big driver in where we're going in the fuel industry in Africa. Now, the fourth point is that we have a number of growing cities. Okay, before Africa was very remote. Okay, we're in the country section mostly. You go to places and you find that people are living in grass thatched houses. But now we have over 63 number of cities, 63 cities with more than 1 million people. And then the last point is that right now, and that is the, if I just point, the last point is that right now we have over 1 million annual new car sales. And this is something which is driving the fuel industry in Africa. Okay. Now, what do we see in the future? And that is the section of tomorrow. We're seeing that in the future, by 2030, Africa should be having about $2.6 trillion in the GDP. Okay. We're also seeing that we shall have more than $1.4 trillion being spent by the consumers by 2030. Okay. We're also seeing that we shall have a growing population of about 1.1 billion people in the working age as Africans. What's happening in Africa now is that there is a rapid population growth, and you find that we have more youths than any other population. So by 2040, we believe it's going to be 1.1 billion of this working population. Then by 2030, we feel like 50% will be living in cities. As I earlier mentioned, people are moving from the remote areas and coming into the cities. Okay. And also we shall have more than 6 million annual new car sales by 2030. This is a very, very big number, which should influence the fuel industry in one way or the other. Now, moving forward, what does this mean? Just to give you another brief history of what's going on in Africa. The other thing which is going on is that Africa has become big on oil and gas exploration, development, and production. Okay. If you go back to 20 years ago, this wasn't the case. We had a few producers. That was like Angola. We had Nigeria. But right now we have other countries that have joined this. Even my country, Uganda, has also joined this league. So you find that in East Africa, if I focus just in East Africa, in Tanzania, they've had, and this is for in the upstream sector, in Tanzania, they've had 57 trillion cubic feet of gas discovered in the Songo Songo project. Okay. And this is run by TPDC, which is the national oil company. And then you have in Mozambique, which is just south of East Africa, they've had a discovery of 100 trillion cubic feet of natural gas as well. And also this is controlled by the national oil company and also the authority as well, which is INP and ENH respectively. Now in Kenya, which is next door to my country, Uganda, you've had also them discovering 750 million barrels of oil. And this is being handled by the NOC of Kenya. And now in Uganda, which is the farthest along among these countries I've mentioned, we are at the stage of development of the 6.5 billion barrels of oil that were discovered a few years ago. So right now the players we have are the Petroleum Authority of Uganda and the National Oil Company as well. These are the players from the government. Okay, now moving forward to just a little bit more focus on Uganda, because that's where I come from. And that's what we also need to, we need to invite you to come and also showcase equipment and all that there. In Uganda, what has happened is that we've had 21 oil and gas discoveries so far to date. There have been 9 production licenses that have been issued out to Total Energies and CNOOC, the Chinese national oil company. And also we've given out 3 exploration licenses for further exploration. And as I tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, only 10% of the Albertine Graben, where the oil has been discovered, has been licensed. So we have 90% to be licensed even more. So the local players, as I mentioned, are the Petroleum Authority of Uganda, the Uganda National Oil Company, the ECOP, which is the Pipeline Development Company, and the Refinery Development Consortium. What I didn't mention is that I mentioned everybody involved in upstream, but when it comes to the downstream and the midstream as well, we have players. In Uganda, we do have plans for a pipeline which is going to transport oil from Uganda to the coast in Tanzania. And also we have plans for a refinery as well, which is going to be stationed in Uganda. What does this mean? This means that there's going to be massive equipment required, or it's already being required anyway, because in Uganda we foresee oil to be produced start of next year, 2026. Okay? Moving forward, the other thing which is happening in Uganda is that we are going green, and this is also in East Africa and Africa generally. As much as I'm focusing on East Africa, this also stands for Africa generally. We are going green, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, what's going on in Uganda is that the government has partnered with a company called Chira Motors, and they are producing EVs right now. Okay, electronic cars. this section here, we have buses right now running and also production of smaller saloon cars. Of course, it's not yet widespread as we want it to be, but it is a start, which has lasted for the last 10 years. Also in Kenya, the government has partnered with a company called the Basigo, which is also producing electric buses as well. Now, also this brings forth a new need in Africa, in East Africa as well. Okay? The other thing I want to mention here is the evolution of the mobile money. Okay? What is happening now is that in Africa, we are doing more transactions with our phones than anything else, than banks, than anything else. So you can see that from this chart that I mentioned. Oh, sorry. It went a bit faster than I thought. Yes. From this chart that I mentioned, I'm showing you here, this blue section, that is Africa. There was 67. Sorry, second. Yes, there was 67% volume of mobile money accounts created, while just in Africa alone, compared to the rest of the world. Okay, and then also we have several different mobile money apps. Okay, and most of these are falling under what you call the Momo. If you look on this chart here, this bar, this is the Momo Pay, and this is from a company called MTN, which is widespread all over Africa, and this is the preferred company used by the organizations in Uganda, okay, and the rest of Africa as well. Now, what are the implications of this? Okay. The first implication we have of everything I've just mentioned to you now, okay, there is increased demand for efficient and digital solutions. We're no longer analog. We are going digital in Africa. Everywhere you go, it's more digital than anything. Okay? And this means that we should have more digitalized forecourt management systems and digital payment systems as well. Secondly, there is a growing need for sustainability and multi-fuel solutions. I mentioned earlier, in Africa, we are going green as well. The fourth point is that there's an importance of reducing environmental impact and meeting the growing demand for alternative fuels. Then also, we have a rapidly growing urban middle class with increased car ownership, which means that there's increased congestion on fueling forecourts. The last point, I'll skip a few, but the last point we have is that the fuel costs remain a substantial component in commercial and fleet organization budgets. In Africa, it's a place whereby the fuel pricing is changing every single day. We have prices from different station to different station, and this has become so difficult for the consumer as well. Okay, now moving forward, what are the future needs that we foresee in Africa right now? Okay. We've mentioned already that we need digital solutions. We need forecourt management systems that work for us and proper payment systems as well. We also need to prioritize sustainability and reduce environmental impact. So what are the future needs that we foresee right now? And these are just some four of them. Just four I'll mention just now. First and foremost, fuel companies need to grow their networks through site acquisition and new construction, because as I mentioned earlier, the cities are growing and are growing exponentially. We are seeing more than 1 million people living in cities by 2030. Okay? So the fuel companies need to grow their networks through site acquisition and new construction. There's also a need for the fuel companies to expand into C-stores and food service to meet maturing customer need. Also, we need to focus on growing the fuel management needs for commercial and fleet customers. As I earlier mentioned, it's been very tough to keep tabs of the oil price, of the fuel price in Uganda, in East Africa, in Africa. And also, we need to leverage, the fuel companies need to leverage the cashless payments for security, speed, and customer loyalty. As I mentioned earlier, mobile money services are a big deal in Africa. So if you're going to be a fuel distributor in Uganda or any sort of equipment management company in Uganda or in Africa, you need to adopt this mobile money platform as well. Moving forward, What are the major challenges and innovations that we foresee in the forecourt equipment? Now, what I've mentioned here are two challenges in red, okay? Two challenges that are very, 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 very specific to Africa. The first one is the measuring fuel volumes for small transactions. We have a very big population in Africa of motorcycle riders. It is a very big means of transport. It ferries people from one section to the other. What is happening right now is that most fuel dispensers adhere to international standards that ensure accurate measurements starting at 5 liters. But you find a motorcycle owner going to a petrol station and just wants 0.5 liters. Now, how do we manage that accuracy? Okay. The second challenge that we're seeing is that there's inconsistent production of fuel dispenser models. What is happening is that many manufacturers are frequently changing both hardware and software models. They discontinue support for older models, and shortly after, they introduce new ones. Now, in a continent like Africa, where the economy is still down, and we all know this, GDP is still low, this is quite tough for any supplier, for any company, for any consumer. So this is a challenge which needs to be taken care of by the fuel industry itself as well. Now, moving forward, what is the impact of the inconsistent production, as I mentioned earlier? The first thing we're seeing here is the economic burden. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, Africa as a whole, the economy is still down, we know that. But now imagine if you are required to have replacement costs, unnecessary replacement costs. These affect your bottom line for the fuel station operators. Secondly, there's going to be operational disruption as well. If consumers come to you and you have to tell them, you know what, the pumps are up for maintenance, they're changing the software and all this, it could lead to a certain number of days of no work. Okay, meaning that it's going to be some sort of net non-productive time, meaning there will be a downtime for everybody. The third point is the sustainability as well. We need to have waste and environmental management done better. Okay, so because of inconsistent production, there's going to be waste and environmental degradation. Moving forward, what are the best practices that in Africa recommend to the fuel equipment manufacturers, to the forecourt managers? We need, first and foremost, when it comes to software updates, manufacturers should focus on improving software functionality without altering hardware. As we've said, it's quite expensive to maintain this. Okay. The second part is that spare parts need to be produced for even older models, not just the new models. When you change new models, it doesn't mean that you should continue everything. You need to produce the spare parts to have for even the older models as well. Then also the companies should design for longevity, not just for a short while. When it comes to in Africa, we need longevity to have the companies break even after a long time, and they can afford new equipment. Now, of course, we have some market leaders in Africa who have established themselves, like Quen and Tokheim, who have successfully navigated these challenges by prioritizing consistency and support. Definitely, but we recommend that all the companies that are coming to us, that are coming to Africa, put these three practices in check. Now, coming to my conclusion of my presentation, what do we conclude here? We're saying that the fuel industry in Africa is undergoing quite significant developments, driven by investments in oil and gas infrastructure and a growing commitment to sustainability. We have a growing industry, oil and gas industry, which is going to provide fuel later, and also we are going green as well. Forecourt equipment is also evolving, and of course, we have China as the major player right now in Africa, with over 60% of the market. As the industry evolves, manufacturers should balance innovation with practicality. For us in Africa, practicality is a very, very important situation. There should be measurement accuracy up to 0.5 liters, model consistency and spare parts availability. The forecourt equipment industry can better serve the needs of African consumers while contributing to a more sustainable future for the entire continent. Also, efficient and digital solutions are also required here. The fuel companies should adopt these mobile money platforms that we have, these ways of payment that we have in Africa for continuity, for convenience of the consumers. We should also have sustainability as the drive for these fuel companies, and also we should have multi-fuel solutions which are crucial for the industry's growth and sustainability. So we urge the fuel companies to invest in digital solutions, prioritize sustainability, and develop multi-fuel solutions to meet the evolving needs of the customers in Africa. Thank you so much. I've come to the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you. So I don't know if there are any questions. Yeah? Thank you so much, and have a good rest of the day. Thank you.
Sayın Steven'a teşekkürlerimizi sunuyoruz. Saat 14.30'da Büyük Bayi buluşmasında görüşünceye dek hoşçakalın.